wherever you are, if you're at the bottom of the mountain, accept that and then progress. If you're in the middle, accept that and then progress. If you're at the top, accept that and then progress. Because the third thing is there's no end to better.
Mm.
And that's it. And so that no end to better has helped me feel better about getting older. I used to think I was going to be done. I'm not done.
Huh.
So young people sometimes think I didn't get started in time. Old people think I'm done. Neither are true.
Hey friends, welcome to Rugged. Young adulting is tough, and I'm here to show you how to make it easy. You'll learn mindset strategies to harness your thoughts and emotions in ways that help you achieve your goals. I'm your host, Trey Tucker, so let's dive right in. Doug Lennick coaches Fortune 100 executives. He's written multiple books. He became an executive at American Express before he even graduated college. And now as CEO of Think to Perform, he's one of the most respected voices in emotional intelligence and values-based leadership. He's going to tell you how to not be late to your own life, how there's no end to better, and the one simple mental habit that could change everything. Let's dive in.
And, one of the guys that I actually work closely with and am a mentor to and have been, but he's created and built this big, great company. And one of the things he talks to his people about all the time is don't be late to your own life, don't be late, and I wasn't late. And this young guy, when he started his career, he wasn't late either. And the benefits of just deciding whenever you decide that this is your life, it's a good time to get going with it.
Mm. Yeah, that's
So
whenever you're
whether
ready,
you're
just
in your
dive in.
20s or 30s or 40s, doesn't matter.
Yeah. Well, and
You
maybe
know?
we can speak to that a little bit because I,
Yeah,
I talk to a lot of people who they're on one extreme or the other. One extreme is I'm behind. Everybody else has gotten rich and they've made it to their dream job, and I need to make it to where I'm rich by age 25. So that's one extreme. And then the
yeah,
other extreme is they're paralyzed, whether it's
yeah,
from fear or lack of guidance. So do you find that same framework or is it different in your
yeah. No, it
experience?
happens all, it's interesting because I use myself as an example. I started college on time, and I jokingly say I misread the fine print. I thought it was a 40-year degree and I was graduating a year early, but it was a 4-year degree and I was 35 years late. And so I I found that for me it's really this whole whenever you get at it. I remember one time, Trey, I was somewhere on business and it's late at night and I'm listening to somebody on be interviewed. And this was a person who was the interviewer was talking about what this person had done with their life and they talked about going to school late. Like I went finished my college late. I graduated from college at age 57. But the idea of learning, of course, went a long way before that. And so I I was listening to this person talk, and they said that this one person said, I decided it's too late for me to go back because you have any idea how old I'm going to be in 4 years? And then the mentor said to this person, well, how old will you be in 4 years if you don't go to school?
Right.
And at the point, and I thought that to myself, how old will I be if I don't? I'll still be the same age, and I had told my mom long before, and she had passed away before I finished college. But and when I stopped going, I said I'd go back someday. So I thought I should do that.
Wow.
But it's a funny story. The whole story is funny because the reason I got back, I'd written this book and I was asked to speak at the University of Minnesota. President Brunix at the time was starting what he called the Great University of Minnesota Get Together. And he asked, have someone contact me and asked if I would be a keynote speaker. And my book, Moral Intelligence, had just come out. Fred Keel and I had written. and and I had gone to the University of Minnesota, Morris, and so I went. I said, "Yeah, I'd love to speak," and so they introduced me as a graduate, which of course I was not.
Right.
So I'm up there talking about moral intelligence, and I thought, well, I'm going to have to correct the introduction. It was a beautiful introduction. And I said it was mostly right, except I'm not a graduate. So, anyway, afterwards, the dignitaries came up and asked if I would finish my degree with them. And I offered to accept an honorary PhD. They immediately declined,
Okay.
but they told me what I had to do to get a degree. And I ended up going back to Minnesota Morris. Long story short, I changed my degree because of my education and what had happened. I was no longer going to be an accountant. And I went back to get a degree in business management. And I had to take some classes. And one of the classes that I had to audit, one of my book was one of the required readings.
So,
So tell all of your viewers and listeners that start whenever it'll work out.
right. I say you're living proof.
Yeah, you're
I,
still here.
I hope I hope they exempted you from the class when your book was one of the required books.
Well, you know what was funny is I get to the class because I had to drive 3.5 hours to go to class. So I had to drive from Minneapolis to Morris. And I didn't have, I was assigned a professor and I had to go to a few classes. I didn't have to take the entire course. And that just happened to be one of them. And I had found out beforehand the three books that were required. And I was, I thought, wow, that's pretty cool. And so when I get up there, I drive up and I'm sitting in the back of the class, and I'm back there by myself. No one else was there yet. And then people start coming in, and then in comes the professor, and he walks up to me and he said, "You must be Doug Lennick." I said, "Yeah, how did you know?" He said, "Well, you're the oldest guy here. And I heard you were in my class." I said, "Well, I'm really looking forward to the class." And he said, "Me too. I'm going to introduce you as the speaker." I said, "No." And so I ended up being the guest speaker. So I get up there, and so the rest of they're juniors and seniors, and me, I'm a senior myself. So
Either way you look at it.
yeah, so I said to them, "How many of you have ever taken a class where one of your classmates wrote one of the books? This is it." So we had fun. Anyway, I had a good laugh with it. Yeah, so now I'm a graduate, and I'm glad, and I really I really appreciate the concept of lifelong learning. And there's a couple of things that have worked for me since I was young and now that I'm older. And I've modified how I think about them a little bit, but one of the things that helped me a lot is to just take whatever is the truth now and accept it. Whatever is my story now and accept it.
Hmm.
Wherever I'm at now and accept it. So just accept it. So I start with, so in any business situation I get parachuted into, just tell me the facts. Let's just start with the facts, not the alternative facts, the facts, and then from there, the second mindset is progress from there. Let's go from there. So wherever we are, so if you're at the top of the mountain, let's go there. I had a chance to meet Jim Collins, the good to great, and he and
Right.
I had a nice conversation. And one of the things he's correct that good is the enemy to great, but I happen to think great is the gateway to better.
Hmm.
Anybody that's great at something that I know, and I'm sure you are the same, Trey, they want to get better. So if you're at the top, there's no end to better. That's the third thing. So wherever you are, if you're at the bottom of the mountain, accept that and then progress. If you're in the middle, accept that and then progress. If you're at the top, accept that and then progress. Because the third thing is there's no end to better.
Hmm.
And that's it. And so that no end to better has helped me feel better about getting older. I used to think I was going to be done. I'm not done.
Huh.
So young people sometimes think I didn't get started in time. Old people think I'm done. Neither are true.
Yeah. Wow.
So
That's
that's the so what of it all.
oh my goodness. Okay. With those 3 steps you just went through, which one do you find trips people up the most often?
Getting going,
Okay.
inertia. A body at rest will stay at rest, and a body in motion will stay in motion. Just getting going, and that really, I mean, and there's trite little, cute little sayings. Behind those cute little sayings, there are some meaningful uh, words of advice, and the old one, journey of 1,000 miles begins with the first step. I mean, it really is true. And the thing about personal growth, because I think life is all about personal growth. So I start this way, Trey. I look at it as I've been given a Mount Rushmore of gifts.
Hmm.
So nature gave me a Mount Rushmore. I've got more than a Mount Rushmore, but the Mount Rushmore I have is number one. First gift is life itself, and in my nearly now 73 years, I haven't always treated my life as a gift, which is not a good idea. So for those of you that are living right now, and that you all are, if you think your life is a gift, uh, treat it as such. It's a lot better. If you don't think it's a gift, that's unfortunate, because it is. The second gift is a conscience. And when Fred Keel and I wrote Moral Intelligence and then Moral Intelligence 2.0, we weren't making the moral case or the religious case. We were actually making the sustainable organizational case, business case.
Hmm.
Like sustainability requires morality.
Hmm.
And so this notion that we have a conscience, we just, it didn't matter if you have humans all over the world, and there's now more than 8,200,000,000 of us, all of those people all over the world have a conscience. That's a gift. They know right, they know wrong. And again, we can talk about all the influences in that, but that's a fact. Third thing is we have a gift of free will. So I have, and that's why I say moral intelligence and moral competence aren't the same thing.
Hmm.
I have been morally intelligent and morally incompetent in the same moment, meaning I knew what I did was wrong and I did it.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
That's because I have free will,
Yeah.
and I did the wrong thing, and that is largely due to the fourth gift that I didn't handle well in the moment, and that's the gift of emotions.
Hmm.
And here's how I've experienced life emotionally. I think people live their lives emotionally. They think about their lives cognitively. And humans are fooling ourselves because we're at the top of the food chain. We forget we're still part of it.
Hmm. That's true.
We do. We
Uh,
forget we're animals
yeah.
and we cannot defy our nature.
Huh.
You have emotions, you cannot get rid of them. When I started my career, I was told, leave your emotions at home. Well, here I am. All these years later, guess what? Guess how many times I left my emotions at home?
0.
None.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So,
what can you speak more into that? Because emotional
sure.
intelligence, I know you've spoken a lot about emotional intelligence and it's a pretty big topic now. So
Yeah.
what do you give people advice in that area?
Well, here is the first of all, when it comes to emotional intelligence, one should start with accepting that it is a form of intelligence. It's intelligence, and it is not cognitive.
Hmm.
But because we're talking about it, it can be confused.
Hmm.
Emotional intelligence exists independent of cognitive thought, it exists on its own. we've learned to describe it and label it, and we have descriptions and labels for things that we feel. But those emotions are a form of intelligence. They're telling us something.
Hmm.
As animals, we are wired to survive. Everyone on this that's listening to us now, 100% of us are biologically self interested. We cannot help ourselves. You just can't help yourself. And if you can accept that, that's a good thing. You are self interested. Now, what's interested, also true, is you're biologically wired to survive, try to live another day.
Hmm.
Humans' wiring, the wiring is triggered by the emotions we experience as stimulated by some outside event. And so, name an emotion if you felt it could suggest I might be in danger. I feel what?
Fear.
Fear. Fear. If I feel fear, it could be because again, the emotion is telling me something. Fear is intelligence. It's
Hmm.
saying there's something, Doug, for you to be afraid of. It's either out there or it's in here.
Hmm.
And you got to figure it out. Now,
It's the
what
warning
happens?
signal.
Yes. So when the emotion fear is stimulated, when our, well, I'm going to back up a little bit and talk about human experience. Human experience is a combination of three things: cognitive thought. I'm going to put it in the form of a circle: cognitive thought, emotions,
Hmm.
and physicality, actions.
Yeah.
So right now we're both physical. We're both breathing. Our hearts are beating. I'm waving my hands. You're nodding your head. This is really happening. I'm thinking. You're thinking. I have emotions. You have emotions. We think of that in the form of a triangle. I got the concept from Joe Ledoux, professor at New York University. When our reality is stimulated from the outside, it stimulates us emotionally first. And when I feel fear, I could be in danger. We're also wired to pursue opportunity because opportunity means dinner.
That's right.
So we feel excited. We get our heart rate up because there's an opportunity. The wiring is triggered by the emotions. So that's the deal. So, and here's what's interesting about emotions and emotional intelligence. And because I do some work with people as they think about their financial health, I point out it's important to note that the emotional intelligence can't tell the difference between a bear market and a bear in the woods.
Huh.
Both bears will stimulate fear.
Yeah.
I personally only met one bear in the wild one time, and I had heard I would be afraid, and I was. So I
Yeah.
didn't have to tell myself, Doug, get scared.
Right.
No, it was like, I'm scared, instantaneously scared. It was remarkable. Uh, but bear markets scare people too. Now, here's the deal: an irrational response to encountering a bear, a real bear, would be to run. Why is that?
Hmm. An irrational response
Yeah,
would be to run?
yeah,
I don't know. Tell me.
because the bear is faster than you.
Yeah. It's
And,
eventually going to catch up.
and the bear will win the race.
Yeah.
If the bear is coming and if you run, they now know you are prey.
Huh.
You're not running because you think you can beat the bear up.
Huh. That's good.
This is a fact, by the way. This is true.
Yeah.
Now, when you run from a bear market, so you run from the bear in the woods, you're going to lose your life. You run from the bear market, you're going to lose your money.
Yeah. Huh.
Both are irrational responses. Irrational decision making trumps high IQ every time.
Mm.
This isn't about how smart you are. This is about how able you are to access how smart you are in the presence of competing and difficult to deal with emotions. That's the deal.
Wow.
And that's where the game is won or lost. The differentiating competencies across the world and in every discipline are not cognitive, they are not technical. Those are table stakes.
Hmm.
The differentiators in every discipline all over the world are moral and emotional.
Mm. How do you know if you're morally intelligent and emotionally intelligent?
Moral intelligence is really, when we did, it's back to the conscience. What happens is there is a nature and there is a nurture. So when Fred Keel and I uh, we hired a research. Took us 10 years to write the book, by the way, and we
Wow.
had a guy named Orlo Otteson who we hired to do a lot of research, and we learned a lot. We started the research in 1995. We published the book in 2005, and towards the end of the century, neuroscience was breaking through with all kinds of stuff that was really helpful to us. And I'll use an example. We were able to, well, we could demonstrate that we're born to be moral just like we are born to be lingual.
Hmm.
That's so your nature predisposes you to learning language. The nurture that you received resulted in you speaking at least English. You may speak something else. Do you speak another language as well?
I do not. I
Good.
do not.
Now, had you been born in China, my guess is you would be speaking Chinese.
Huh.
You weren't born to speak English. You were born to speak.
Yeah. Just to learn some level of
Nature,
communication verbally.
yeah, so there's the nature and then there's the nurture.
Hmm.
All humans are born with a nature to develop a conscience.
Hmm.
It's nature's talking
Yeah.
to us.
Yeah.
And then we're born into a nurturing. And what happens in the first 2 years of life, if the infant is the beneficiary of what's called a somatic bath, they get love and safety. The brain, think of the brain as the hardware, the
Hmm.
brain will grow in a normal way and it'll have room to store what we would call praiseworthy values,
Huh.
a solid moral code. If, on the other hand, that little infant, undue abuse, psychological, mental, emotional, physical, whatever it is, the brain will retard part of its growth. The
Hmm.
hippocampus specifically will be about a third smaller.
Hmm.
And there's no hardware. There's no hardware. There's no place to store the moral code.
Hmm. Interesting.
Most people, actually, even most people in prison, were good people who did bad things.
Huh.
They're not bad people who did bad things. They're good
Right.
people who did bad things.
Right. And
But there are people who don't know right from wrong, but there aren't many of them. But
right.
they do exist.
Hmm.
They really are there. But the idea is all of pretty much 100% of those that are listening and watching us right now are morally intelligent.
Okay.
They actually were blessed with enough safety and love that they learned right from wrong.
Yeah.
They learned that you don't take other people's stuff, it's their stuff.
Yeah.
They learned that you actually share because we're here for each other,
Yeah.
not here to take advantage of each other. We're here for each other. One of the reasons we were born with a nature to talk is so that we could communicate to each other, not to take advantage of each other, to help each other.
Yeah.
That's why we're here. That's our nature. Oh, and so by the time I'm 6 years old, I've got praiseworthy values.
Hmm.
I know that I shouldn't cheat. I know I shouldn't lie. I know I shouldn't do bad things. And yet I also have this gift of emotions.
Hmm.
And sometimes I do the wrong thing. Sometimes when I'm angry, I say or do something regretful. Sometimes when I'm jealous, I take somebody's I take something from somebody that's theirs and not mine.
Hmm.
Sometimes, I'm a human being. And years ago, I had the good benefit of getting to work with Richard Leider in developing my own purpose statement. He wrote The Power of Purpose, and he's written the foreword to a couple of my books, and I've been involved in his book. And I recently revised my purpose statement. When I did it with him, my purpose statement, and I've lived with it for many years, and I'm happy with it, is to help myself and others achieve our highest and greatest potential.
Hmm.
And I just recently, at age 72, not age 71, not age 73, at age 72, I added these three words: as human being.
Hmm.
My purpose now, and it always has been, I just didn't phrase it right, has been to help myself. I'm not totally altruistic here. Help myself and others, you and our listeners, our viewers, achieve our highest and greatest potential
Hmm.
as human beings, because we're not going to get out of here. I was born a human. I'm going to die a human.
Hmm.
And the best I can do is be good at it, be the best I can while I'm here.
Hmm.
And I think that's our challenge. And to all of our listeners, we should make sure they just accept whenever they want to get started. It's a good time. And then your personal growth, if you work at it every day, if you pay attention to yourself every day, you will improve your decision making. There's some things we could talk about with regard to that if you want. But
Absolutely. Yeah. Please do.
yeah.
Please.
I mean, the real deal here is we've all now, except we're part of a humanity, we're talking to each other. And so the people that are watching are part of the same humanity we are. And so here we are. We may not know each other, but we're part of this human nature group. So now we've got relationships. So I'm going to start with that. Effective relationships with others is a function of effective management of self.
Hmm.
So, how well I relate to anybody else has everything to do with how well I deal with me.
Hmm.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah. You got to
Okay.
have yourself figured out as best you can before you can go turn it outward.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and how well I deal with me is a function of how effective I am at making decisions real time. And that in turn is a function of self-awareness. So here's the exercise. It's bottoms up, and I don't drink. I'm a recovering alcoholic, so this is not a drinking exercise. It's self-awareness first, effective decision making second, effective management of self third, and then effective relationships with other people fourth. Now, so when I think about that, um, have you ever personally achieved having a difficult day?
More often than not.
Okay.
I'm
Now,
a high achiever at that.
do you have a family, Trey?
I have an extended family, none of my own yet.
Okay. So, do you live with anybody now?
I do not.
Okay. So, your extended family includes who would be closest to you
My
that you go
sister.
see from your sister?
Yeah.
Have you ever come into the household and your sister is there? You're coming home maybe from a difficult day. She was there and she was inappropriately upbeat.
Inappropriately upbeat. Yes.
Yes. Now, behaviorally, what are some things you can do to turn your sister into less happy than she was before you arrived? What can you do? What have you
So, not so pleasant things, yelling, maybe making some sort of a snide
yelling?
comment.
Start with yelling. Yelling is an instantaneous one. It works almost always instantaneously
Yeah.
because our emotional intelligence, it'll take that outside message. It takes 12 milliseconds to activate our emotional intelligence.
Hmm.
So if you yell at a happy person, within 12 milliseconds, you can convert them.
Powerful, quick, instantaneous results.
It's that powerful. It's that powerful. And so, what we help people understand self awareness, I'm going to share with you a game you can play. And I assure you this, if you don't currently do this, it'll profoundly change your life. It's just unbelievable. Anybody that doesn't currently do this, if you practice, the way the brain works is practice makes permanent.
Hmm.
Practice does not make perfect.
Hmm.
Practice makes permanent.
Wow.
So whatever one repeatedly thinks or whatever one repeatedly does gets wired into the habit center of your brain.
Yeah.
And what I'm about to share with people is something that will make self awareness a habit.
Hmm.
Most people overestimate their self awareness. Like, I'm going to guess that some percentage of our audience at some point during this podcast, at some point it occurs to them, I'm not listening.
Hmm.
I mean, we check out. We're in conversations. We read a book. Have you ever read a book? You get to the end of a chapter and you go, "What did I just read?"
Oh yeah.
Yeah, think of that. That's you reading to yourself and not paying attention.
Hmm. Hmm.
Think of that.
Wow.
Most
It's
people don't think of that. They assume they're paying attention to
right.
themselves, but they're not.
No. Huh.
No. So here's the game: self-awareness. Multiple times a day. You have to practice multiple times a day. You practice multiple times a day. You hit the pause button and you ask yourself and answer these questions. What am I thinking right now? For example, right now I'm thinking this has been really engaging and a lot of fun. That's what I'm thinking right now. How are you feeling right now? I personally am feeling very engaged. I'm feeling a little impish, a little impish. I feel, kind of clever. Uh, and what am I doing right now? Well, right now I'm speaking to you, and I'm sitting forward. I've got my leg crossed. I'm gesturing with my hands. My face is active. I know I've got a smile there. That's what is happening. The freeze game. What are you thinking? How are you feeling emotionally? Emotions are words. They're not sentences. I'm feeling impish. I'm feeling clever.
Yeah.
I'm feeling engaged. I'm feeling excited.
Hmm.
I'm feeling appreciative. I'm very thankful that I get to be here. That's what I'm feeling. I feel all that. So pay attention. What am I doing? And there's no nothing.
Yes.
A lot of people say, well, I'm not doing anything. Not true. What's your face doing? What's your body doing? All of us can sometimes read somebody's mind, even though the person who is not speaking doesn't necessarily want us to, but we can tell how they're feeling without them saying or doing anything.
Yeah.
That's called empathy.
Hmm.
Freeze game, if you practice multiple times a day, and here's the bonus question: could I be thinking or doing something better?
Hmm.
One of the things we did in the Twin Cities years and years ago, I was hired by the Carlson School of Management. I'm a fellow there, which was great to be declared a fellow. And and so they made me a fellow. And one of the things they did is they brought us in to work with the uh, um, surgical teams, people that do surgery. What are they called? Surgical teams, we'll call them.
We'll call them
And,
that.
and it turns out, and the reason is the biggest hazard associated with surgery is distraction.
Hmm.
So we taught them the freeze game, and they relabeled it pause for cause. So on the way into surgery, they hit a little thing that just said, get in touch. Now, what are you thinking? How are you
Wow.
feeling? What are you doing? Get in the zone. The idea isn't to always be in the zone, but to be in the zone when you need to be. And when you have a patient in surgery, that's a good time to be in the zone.
You think?
So it's that kind of thing. And we do this with professional athletes. It's all the same stuff.
Yeah.
It's all about taking charge of yourself. So that logic chain begs the question, how will I know I'm managing myself well? And the answer to that is I will be aligning my real self, what I think and do, regardless of how I feel.
Hmm.
I'm going to think and do what I need to think and do,
Hmm.
consistent with my ideal self, the person that I think about, that person that I care deeply about, the guy that has praiseworthy values, that guy, the guy that has a conscience, that guy. I want to align my real self with that guy and achieve my goals along the way.
Hmm.
There's an alignment model.
Yeah.
So I have the alignment model, a three-frame model. On the far right, on the far, well, let's go left to right. On the far left is my ideal self,
Mhm.
my values. I would encourage every one of your listeners, just go to our website or go to Google values exercise. If you Google values exercise right now, what'll come up is there probably might be a banner ad, but the very next entry, oddly enough, we paid nothing for this, will be think to perform values exercise.
Okay.
It's
Wow.
we
And the name
it's
of the think two, the number two, think two
yeah, you
perform,
just
right?
the number two, the word think, and you can just click on that and do the values exercise. We have thousands of people doing this,
Hmm.
and we're capturing what people all over the world care about. And this is not going to stun you, Trey, but here's what we're learning. People all over the world have similar values and dissimilar resources.
Hmm.
And one of the things that we try to do is help people align what resources they have with their goals and their values so that they can live in alignment and enjoy the rewards that come from that.
What kind of
And so,
resources do you mean?
say again,
What kind of resources do you mean?
resources could be time, could be energy, could be thought. I'll give you an example. One of my colleagues here is a guy named Richard Coffey. Richard Coffey played in the NBA. He has a son that plays in the NBA. Amir Coffey plays for the LA Clippers. He has a daughter that plays in the WNBA. She plays for the Atlanta Dream. And he and his other daughter took a trip to in southern country in Africa last summer. I think it was in August, and they went down there to visit a village, and they were visiting an orphanage in this village, and they were there thinking that we're helping out with the orphanage. Well, it turns out the orphanage is a desired destination site for the villagers whose children haven't been able to get into the orphanage yet. Because if you don't get into the orphanage, you're likely to die.
Hmm.
If you get into the orphanage, you might live.
Hmm.
And so they discovered hadn't rained in this little country since January. Here it was August.
Hmm.
They didn't have any money, but they had some buckets. They had some pails and buckets in without holes in them, and they had a river that was 12 miles away, dirty water in it. And what the women, the actually the elderly women of the village would do is they would each take two empty buckets and they would carry it 12 miles That was their resource, the empty buckets. And they would carry those buckets for 12 miles, fill them with water, carry them back, and heat the water so that they could be usable.
Hmm.
Well, they were down there also to tap a well, because once you get a well, the world around everything changes.
Yeah.
But that was so what I say is I try to help people develop what I call financial intelligence,
Huh.
this ability to make reasonably smart, responsible, values based decisions with your resources,
Hmm.
whatever they are, whatever they are. And, uh, and some people have buckets without holes in them. Some people have buckets with cash in them. And I hypothesize that if we can match up people who care about others, and there's a lot of people who care about other people. You're one of them. I'm one of them. Uh, and and match us up with people who have needs, and that's what we do. That's where philanthropy comes in. We can solve a lot of problems, and it's all done through values based decision making.
Wow. So if I'm hearing you right, can I zoom out and just see if I'm tracking? You start with figuring out what your values are that your ideal self really believes in.
Yes,
You take a look at your self in the moment with the pause game. What am I thinking? What am I feeling? What am I doing? And then
those
I'm
two
face
things, you win right there if that's all you did. Now, you'll do more after that, but I'll give you myself as an example. My values are family, happiness, wisdom, integrity, service, and health. There's six of them. The game will actually take you down to five, but it's my game. I can do is what I want. And I use water. I don't have a water bottle. I have a Diet Coke here, but
uh-huh.
I'll share this as an example. If this was water and it's Diet Coke and it's not a healthy alternative, but I'm going to use it. In the time it took me to do that, it did taste good, by the way. Um, what I did was, and I put verbs in front of values. And whenever I interact with water, so I start with brushing my teeth, taking shower, washing my hands in the morning. By this time of day, I have reviewed my values with verbs in front of them, double digits. And it
Huh.
goes like this every time: love your family, be happy, seek wisdom, behave with integrity, do something of service for somebody else today, and make healthy choices. And then I set that water bottle down and I say to myself, you made one just now. Now, in my case, I didn't, but I did
Right.
the routine anyway. But today I have taken a shower. I have brushed my teeth. I have gone to the restroom multiple times. I have had several bottles of water. And I am estimating I have reviewed my values today at least 2 dozen times,
Wow.
because I want to find them in the dark.
And as you
I
said,
yeah,
practice makes permanent.
practice makes permanent. And here's the deal: if you practice the freeze game, what'll happen is when you read a book, by the end of the first sentence of you not paying attention, you'll notice.
Hmm.
You'll go, my goodness, I just had an executive who didn't believe me, and he and his wife got away from their kids for a weekend, and he said, I'm going to be taking some books, and he brought a book along, and I asked him how it went, and he said, I can't believe it. He said, I think you might actually be a genius. I said, I don't think so, but why? He said, you're right. He said, you even told me it would happen, and I had to read the first chapter 3 times
Huh. Wow.
because I can't. I'm not trained to focus.
Right.
We're not trained to focus. We're trained to be distracted.
Yeah. Especially these days. Especially
Yes,
these days.
especially these days,
Yes.
we are trained to be distracted, and but if you practice, I'm serious, because it will really. And here's the bonus question: could I make a better choice?
Mm.
What am I thinking? How am I feeling? I can't decide how to feel, but if you invite me back for an advanced class, what we will do is teach people how to change the stimuli from outside in to inside out.
Ooh. And on that note, I do want to keep this going in a separate episode because
Well,
you don't have
I'll give you the quick trick. The quick trick is decide what to think. Most people don't.
Okay. Wow. Decide what to think. Yeah. I mean, we're not at the
Yeah,
mercy of our thoughts. You're right. We can
right.
actually tune in to certain
We named a
thoughts.
company Think to Perform. Most people don't decide what to think.
Hmm.
They are pinballs. If you remember pinballs, they think whatever the bumpers bumps them to.
Yeah.
Those who decide what to think have an unfair competitive, well, that's fair, but it's a competitive advantage. And now we've shared it with everybody.
You gave it away. No more cliffhanger.
But
My goodness.
yeah, I can go on and on if you want. So we're good. All I have next is I'm going to go to the Timberwolves game tonight.
Oh, nice. I'm jealous. I tell you, this has been amazing. I see why people are clamoring to get coached by you, and I want to do a separate episode where we do dive deeper into so many of these topics and more because I'm sure we just scratched the surface of what
Oh,
you've
yeah. I mean, we
spoken
can
about.
do that. I'd love to do it. I mean, you've got
Yeah.
an audience I don't get to talk to. I'd love to talk to them because all
Okay.
I want to do is really, honest to goodness, I want to honor my purpose. My purpose is to help myself and others achieve our highest and greatest potential as human beings.
Yeah.
And I'm a human and I suffer. I mean, already declared, I'm not proud of it, but I am a recovering alcoholic.
Yeah.
The COVID, I was one of those guys that helped alcohol sales go up during COVID.
That's good. See, they should be sharing their profits with you and each quarter when they're paying out their dividends.
Yeah, yeah. Well, but now I'm hurting them.
Hey, thanks so much for being here today. Before you go, would you hit that subscribe button so that future episodes come right to you? Thanks so much, and I'll see you next time.